Hi, Jamie here. Today I am joined by a guest, my son Nathan, and we're going to talk a little bit about his experiences with Alice in Wonderland syndrome. I did a video before about how he and my daughter both have this syndrome, and I've gotten so much feedback from people that have also had these experiences and how rewarding or how comforting it was to hear from somebody else that also had that. They couldn't put a name on it, and now they can name it. And so, in interest in the kind of the spirit of that, I wanted to have Nathan on to talk to us about his own experiences and kind of some tips and tricks for you guys as parents and just as having kids that might be going through this. But just before I do that, I wanted to also say the reason why I wanted to do this video is because I've been recently on a podcast. The podcast is called AwakenToJoy, and you can find it in a new folder that I'm doing for podcasts. I was on their podcast about a month ago, and it was so rewarding to talk to them. But they were just so gracious and lovely, and I really recommend checking it out. I'll put a link to the thing down below. They were really interested in Alice in Wonderland syndrome. So I thought, well, let's have Nathan on and see how that goes, just to kind of have a chat. The other thing I wanted to mention was I have always had a website, and I'll put it at the bottom as well, but it's mostly been for my art and my jewelry, which is something that I've loved to do. My art is actually very inspired by my lucid dream, my astral travel, all my visionary trance states that I do. So that's a good link. But now I've started to actually also have lucid dreaming tips. I have a whole little short video page. I have a dream blog where I'm telling stories. I'm gonna do a lot more content on there if you want to check it out. So keep a lookout for that. So anyways, this is Nathan.
Hello.
My son. He's 13, and the first thing I just wanted to dive in and ask you, Nathan, was what is your first recollection, or what is your definition of Alice in Wonderland syndrome from a personal experience? And what is your first experience? What did it look like?
Well, I think it is sort of more of a distortion of, sensory inputs. So, like, time will be kind of like slower or faster. Your ears will, like, hear stuff that's not there. It's kind of like hallucinations, but you, like, know they're not real. My first memory of it was in Houston when I was 5, I think.
That would be right, yeah.
Yeah. And there was a fan on the ceiling, and I'd look at it, and the fan would, like, come really close and far away. Even though I knew it was the same distance, it just sort of felt like it was coming really close and far away and bigger and smaller. And I remembered that before we moved away, I started to make kind of, like, friends with it. Like, it still do it, but it's be more like a friendly thing. Kind of like playing a game or something.
So did it have kind of a personality to it, or did you tend to put that on it?
I think I put that on it myself to kind of give it more of a charm instead of like a fearful, very scary thing that, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just to kind of almost cope with it.
Yes.
Because it was scary, right?
Yes, it was very scary.
And the fear part of it, did it have to do with that perception? Can you describe a little bit more about this perception? Because I know you call it the big and the small.
Yeah, because
right?
The things are getting bigger and smaller.
Which is why Alice in Wonderland, they theorized that Lewis Carroll had this syndrome, because, it's just like Alice with the, cottage doors, she's big, everything's small, kind of the perception problem. So from your perspective, there was just a fear. Can you describe a little bit why it was so scary? I mean, besides being so bizarre.
Yeah. It was kind of like, it's like, there's also your ears get distorted too. So like, you'll hear like really loud noises, like you're not actually hearing it. But for some reason, like, it's happening, and then it'll get really silent. And then that is kind of like causes anxiety, I guess, which can cause fear.
Okay, so it's kind of more like the unknown.
Yeah.
And I know there's been times where I've been sitting like at the edge of the bed, and he's wide awake, mind you. He's not even gone to sleep yet, and he's kind of like, okay, Mom, you're really, really far away now. And right? Like,
yeah.
And I just look really, really far away. Is that?
It doesn't physically look far away. It's just sort of like your brain is telling you look the same distance, but my brain is telling me that you're far away.
Wow, that's great. That's fascinating. Okay, so in terms of so that's your first memory is this fan. And then how did it kind of move forward over the years? Do you have any other experiences, or has it just been mostly the perception? It's been a lot of times when you're sick. For us as parents, it's been mostly when he has a fever, but not always, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
it's not the fever. Sometimes it's just whatever.
Yeah. That's like the most profound memory of mine. I also remember when we moved in here that I sort of had that experience. I don't remember the specifics, but recently I was sick and I had like the big and the small, but it was like the noise was happening. It was like getting really loud and everything was all big, and then suddenly it's like small and it's all quiet. Like a scary quiet kind of.
I can almost feel what you feel in that way. Yeah, I could see how that would be unnerving. Okay, well, I think the other thing we're going to touch on, unless there's anything else about kind of the initial, no, is more of some of the experiences we've had as parents, because he doesn't recall a lot of them. So I spoke in a previous video about my experiences with him, our first experience with it, because you never told us about that in Houston.
Really?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. Our first experience with this was you coming into our room when we were living in China, and you were very, very scared. So maybe you were 7. And you were so scared, but we could tell that you were not there. You were not there, and you were talking about all sorts of horrible things, Nathan. Oh, it was really scary. It was really scary. And it took like a good solid 2 minutes to sort of get you down, to kind of come back to us. And I told in the other video, and I really did think I had a good solid like half an hour of my life where I thought, oh my gosh, this is like day 1 of my son with schizophrenia. Like he's, and I was so scared. It was really bad. But that was our vantage point, but you don't recall that, right?
No, I don't. I think it's also kind of because you're like really tired too. So, like, there are some times when my mom would wake me up in the night to check on me, and I just would have no recollection of it because of just how tired I am. I think that's kind of similar. So, like, it's a short memory, but it's more of a blur. Kind of like memorizing or trying to remember a dream.
Right, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So I guess before we just dive into some tips and tricks that maybe you can give other people, do you relate it to dream work in any way, or do you see it as kind of a correlation? It definitely is in kind of that liminal in-between space.
Yeah, it really does feel like that. So, like, I'll close my eyes and, like, I'll have the thing happening, but I know it's, like, I don't see it happening, but I know it's happening somehow. Sort of like an internal feeling.
Interesting, okay.
Kind of like in a dream, like sometimes like things are happening even though you don't physically see them, hear them, or anything. That's kind of how that is.
Like without the visuals, almost.
Yes.
That idea?
Yeah, there's no actual sensory input, but your brain is just somehow making an inference or a connection or something that's happening.
So in your opinion, is there any kind of spiritual nature to this, or is it more just kind of a wiring situation?
I think it could be a bit of both.
Both? Okay.
Yeah.
I could see that. Okay. The last thing before we let Nathan go, is we wanted to know if you have any tips. I've heard from so many people that are like comforted by the fact that other people are like, oh my gosh, this is a thing, like, and can you imagine if like we told you that it was not real or that you were crazy, how upsetting that would be?
Yeah.
People went through that, and then there's parents now that maybe are having children go through it now. I mean, I've talked about my daughter. She also has this syndrome, and it's been pretty scary. You remember the one night? Yeah. So yeah, any tips? Not tips, just any kind of words of support for people that might be going through it.
One thing I like to do whenever I'm having it, it's kind of like the syndrome builds up anxiety, and then you kind of want to push that back down so you don't cause it again. Which I kind of think is why it happens when you're sick. But, so, sometimes I would like to turn on the light, like the main light, not just some night light, like the actual light, and just read for a few, like 20 minutes or so, just to kind of like calm you down. So I think that's the best way to deal with it. And, yeah, that's better.
Okay, yeah, that's great. All right, well, anything else? I think that pretty much wraps it up. Yeah. It's so interesting. I mean, it's been so interesting to hear from other people that have gone through it. I can't even remember when I figured out that it was called Alice in Wonderland syndrome, but I was like, oh my gosh, it's a thing, and like my son has it.
I think it was when we first moved to Washington, and we were kind of like, you were kind of like, okay, this is starting to happen a lot, because I had a fever, and you were like, we want to figure out how to deal with it, because it was happening like 2 nights in a row now, and you were getting a little worried, so you did some research, and I think that's how you figured it out.
Yeah, it is so hard as a parent to watch your child kind of and not have a whole lot of control over that. It wasn't easy, but I think we've navigated it pretty well, and yeah, so I guess that's it. I don't know, anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Well, thanks for coming on, Nay.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, and thanks so much for watching. As always, keep a lookout for more videos, and have a good rest of the day.